All right. Hey everyone. Mhm. So good to see you guys. It's been so long since the last Zoom call. I don't even remember when. So it's really good to connect with all of you. You probably will have some latecomers. So this call is sponsored by Ali, who um, posed a question to my channel. Ali, maybe you can verbalize the question.
Which is never my strength. It's always a matter of decoding. Um, but basically, we were speaking about schools and bringing this energy to schools, which is something that, yeah, it's been on our radar, right? And I know, like Lee, um, timing wasn't right when she tried to initiate something previously in the past, but it's definitely been on our radar and it's something that we speak about a lot. And it's something that we both feel is very necessary here. And yeah, I can get into it more and maybe contextualize it a little bit more what I'm feeling and thinking. But essentially, just starting is where my first kind of question mark is yeah, really listen, quite literally the process of starting these conversations with these systems. What does that look like? What has been done in the past? I'd love to hear about, I know obviously you guys are doing amazing work in the Philippines and, wherever else this is happening, it would be super cool just to hear about those processes and then kind of for us to be able to localize it here and start, thinking about what that can look like. Um, Timing is obviously really important, and I don't know, I have no idea if the timing is now, but it does feel like the timing is right for this kind of conversation and the opening and kind of exploring how. Um, yeah, so I mean, really, the first of all, the starting process, and then I think there's lots more to talk about, and things will unfold. But those conversations, I think I imagine approaching these systems or schools, um, and I immediately hit a little bit of a block. What do we call it? How do we explain it? What language is being used? And obviously, this does need to be localized and contextualized to wherever you are. Um, but yeah, hearing what's being done would be an
Hmm.
amazing, amazing help.
Okay.
Yeah,
So thank
if you
you.
could do
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm touched by the question.
Thank you.
So I'd like to go into maybe a long answer to this because for me it's not a simple question, especially from an inner dance perspective. This question runs deep. Like, where do we start with remodeling the system, the schooling system, and the fact that all the other systems are interconnected with education? To let everyone know, Ali is a teacher, and at the same time, she is thinking about presenting this to a school outside of where she works, where this could be embraced um, in a holistic way. So I'd like to bring us partially into philosophy, partially into the political, partially into the economic. Um, I I think we need to define and redefine what we understand about the school. There's something limiting already when we say the word school. Um, this is about wisdom, it's about knowledge, it's about learning, and um, we can all be in this conversation, obviously, because we all probably, hopefully, went to school. We all have our experiences with schools, and we have our stories with what it was like. I especially had a difficult time. I went to a Montessori in grade school, and then I went to the LaSalle schools for high school. I went to the US as an exchange student, and then I went to a very known business school in college and had very interesting moments there, like some happy moments, but mostly I can't say I have good memories about going into a big concrete box with schedules and rules, commands, like responsibility. So my work with schools now, our work with schools for me brings me a lot of joy because it allows me to address the problems that I was seeing when I was younger in a way that I couldn't do anything about it because I was inside the system. I was part of the system. I was indoctrinated in the system in a very powerless way because I was a participant and I wasn't in a creative alchemy, Flores here, with the system. I wasn't being given a chance to hold the paintbrush, the writer's pen. So a lot of this is ironic. I've been working with the schooling system for a while, actually with big possibilities over the years. So the school project we're doing here is not the first time we're working with the Department of Education, with principals, with schools. This for me is a 10-year-old conversation. It goes way back. And the success that we're seeing here is a product of many, many experimentations. So I'm rather glad that we're partially connecting Asia and Africa within this conversation, which could very well represent the Latin Americas and even the US, even Europe. There are problems. So I want to talk about the energy of the problem. What does it mean to look at a problem? What is a problem to begin with? What is our approach to problems? And from an inner dance journey perspective, what does it mean to begin with oneself? So we could try to change the system from outside, but because we're having this conversation within the inner dance ecosystem, this has something to do with the school, the government, the factory, the bank, the corporation. They're all inside. So we want to map out how do all these puzzles fit? Somehow the mandala would need to come in to play today. That if you were to map out your body, what you'd actually come up with is a kind of social map. Let me go into the shared screen. Wait, let me just fix my writing board. Okay, let me go into a screen share. This is usually easier for me to think out loud in the image. Okay, I need to hide some widgets by Zoom. Okay, so I've been doing something interesting in my body and in inner dance trainings and energy. You know how we might look at the chakra system where you'd have the red, the orange, the yellow, the green, the blue, the indigo, the violet. And it's really up to you how you might want to bear representations onto these, because I've been part of the Earth Village or the Eco Village movement for many, many years now. One of my interests is how do you actually map out the society according to the colors? So would the red have to do with, let's say, food systems or money systems, sustainability systems? The orange has to do with like birthing or art, creativity, according to how we understand the colors to hold. Yellow would be energy, It could also interrelate with power, systems to do with power. Green would be love, so that would be like the family structure. It could be, just put love there. Blue would be sharing. So anything to do with communication, with shared space, with negotiations, with valuation processes, and obviously wisdom is here. So the school would be mapped out somewhere, and it probably would have interactions with the opposing or contrasting color, which is yellow, and the primary colors that have to do with it. So you can map things out. We would wonder, okay, with the projects that we're doing, where do the corporations fit? Where does the government fit here? Where does, like jails, talking about jails, where do jails fit in here? Like this for me is an interesting exercise, because when you bring healing to people, you can only heal people so much. If you don't heal the society that encases the people, there's still going to be suffering, because somehow the society mirrors the self. So there has to be this constant reflexivity that if you're working on a project, you're working on an institution, you're working on an advocacy, you're also working somehow on something inside that relates to core, relates to a deep statement we have about, I'm confused, I don't know anything, no one supports me, I don't have any resources. Like, how do we convert what we believe in relationship with what is also holding those systems in place? So for me, this is where it started. To answer Ali's question, for me, this is where it begins. Inner dance is actually in many ways a beginning. It's a huge starting point. Wait, not yet. But when you think about my story of living on the island, going into deep process, deep depression, deep sorrow, joy, working on myself alone, a huge part of why I was doing it was because I was actually concerned about the problems of the world. You look around, like you shake your head, it's like, where do I start? And in Africa, you could just look around. Okay, I've got this big notebook. I'm gonna go around, I'm gonna list all the problems. What I was interested in was, how do we find possibly a one solution to all the problems? And honestly, I actually have come close to spaces in the world that have appreciated what the energy can bring solution-wise. Inner dance is really not just a healing mechanism. Inner dance, you mentioned the word code. Inner dance could hold a code that could address problems, and this has to do with like grounding things. Not always easy to talk about. There's an art, there's a journey process to it. So there has to be a starting point. That's why this question is so key. This question Ali is holding is so timely. It's like, okay, like that's true. If you have like a labyrinth or a maze, there has to be like a starting point. What is the key that opens the door, that allows us to enter? What is it that I say that allows the system to say, okay, you can come in now. you can go do your thing. You can allow the pieces to move around, or you can allow us to find the dance that allows the pieces to move by itself. That I don't move the pieces, you don't move the pieces. The pieces have a way of moving naturally, spontaneously, wisely. So what would allow the system to be able to do that? There has to be a starting point. The starting point is the end point, but I don't want to go too philosophical in that. So let me see. Okay. Let me go back to the shared screen. Let's start now. Let's just begin now. So let's look at that word. So we'll be honest about it. Problems. And I think one of the temptations when you bring up that word, concept, or energy is that we want to solve it. That's cognitive dissonance. The human cannot stand discomfort. So when there's a problem, let's just get it out of the way. Let's throw it out the window. Let's solve it. In inner dance, we don't necessarily go there. We sit with it because often the problems might be showing us something on a physical level, a mental level. You know, we can try to think of problems from a neurobiological or spiritual perspective, where those would meet is we actually feel problems much more than we can think it. And problems are in the body felt very much as emotions. So I'd like to bring up emotions today as a possible part of the schooling system and the corporate and the jail and the government system. Emotions are telling us something, and emotions have different layers. They have different messages. They have different things to say. So when we sit with emotions, we're not solving a problem. We are just looking at things. What would it be like? What would be a starting point if we perceive the world not from a problematic point of view, even though we are honest that there are certain things that aren't totally okay? Like what does it mean to slow down the seeing process? Okay, I've been reading and I've been listening to Catherine Malibu the last weeks. I've been also reading up on Antonio Damasio, and who often quotes the philosopher Spinoza. And I'm appreciating it a lot. I'm happy to maybe share some links with you guys, just so we can share the same resources. Emotions comes up a lot in the neurosciences of Antonio Damasio, and now certain other brain scientists. It's very often emotion is something we cancel out. That emotions don't work. It doesn't allow you to think properly. So you shouldn't go there. Obviously we would agree to a certain degree that emotions of a certain type would not help, you know, in a toxic way, in a way that disempowers people, in a way that brings about a stuckness. Emotions don't actually help. But because of the work that we do and all the observations that we've seen, understanding that inner dance is in a way the activation of emotions. Emotions do play a part. This is something we open up. So in Damasio and Spinoza, no, let's start with Spinoza. Spinoza outlined certain basic human emotions that would very much interrelate with the schooling system in a way. You know, like for him, the most basic, the most positive emotion would be wonder. Wonder is an openness and to the world, this ability to learn. And for Spinoza, wonder is so no, it's in Descartes that wonder is so central and core to the soul of the human, that there's no contrast, there's no opposition to wonder. Now, to Antonio Damasio, there actually is an opposition to that, and it's indifference. In a sense, in Spinoza, wonder is the ability to be affected by the world. It's the ability to feel. So in a way, it's the mother emotion, in a way, because it allows you to feel. It allows you to come into contact with something other than you, something outside, or something that could be an aspect of you, but it allows you to be curious and to, so you can see how indifference would be like a kind of sickness almost even today. Like we're entering into an age of indifference. Are we still in a wonderful world, or have we actually lost wonder in schools? Are we open to learn? And from a neurobiological perspective, are brains open for learning? Are we synaptically making connections? Are we on the way to genius, to brilliance? And when I say we, I'm talking about the global we, the quintessential we, not like the inner dance we or this Zoom call we. Emotions, from the point of view of, let's say, often we talk about responsibility as somehow the ability to respond. Listening to Malibu and Damasio speak about emotions, there's something about sorrow and joy that are poles of each other. They contrast each other, and it's mediated by this this like sorrow is, to Spinoza, the inability to act. When you lack the power to act, then you experience sorrow. And for Spinoza, joy is the ability to do something about it, to be able to act out, not just to act out, maybe to even react, to reenact something with power. And for me, power is an interesting concept to bring alongside wisdom. It belongs within the yellow as opposed to, let's say, wisdom. Welcome, Sophie. Welcome, wisdom, to the indigo. Sophie, by the way, co-sponsors this call. She's also beginning to work with schools in Belgium. So it's also her questions that helps to open up inquiries to how do we start like a project. So I find like this emotional mapping an interesting mapping, primarily because we can think about this from partly a neurological perspective. We've been going into brain mapping, brain waves, brain regions, neurotransmitters, hormones, sensing what chemicals block the brain, the mind from holding information. What is it that helps in, like allowing for the wiring of synapses so that an insight would occur, like something would establish a learning. So it's amazing that we can actually map this out. We have enough tools within the spiritual awakening process, or the energy awakening, that we can actually give a sense of autonomic responsibility, an ability to either enable wisdom or enable addiction, enable some form of emotion through the work that we do, that we're able to act out certain deep things that verbal or linear thinking is not able to always access. And this has something to do with going to the body, activating the body, So for me, I could see this possibly as a starting point. Then I could answer your question in a more concrete way, Ali. Like, where did I start? Where did we start in the Philippines so that we can speak not just to a student, a teacher, a principal? How are we able to speak to the the entire Department of Education? And I have sat down with the head or one of the heads of the Department of Education, not just the superintendents, but like in Manila, where the head office is. I was able to speak to the Minister of Education at one point, and he gave me a challenge to come up with a model that we could scale nationwide. That meeting was way back in 2015, 8 years ago. So I'm still in that project now. I'm still interested in scaling something on a country level. And with you, I'm still interested in scaling something on a global level. But for now, we are working within the biggest city district, which is Puerto Princesa, like in the Philippines. Then the biggest province in the Philippines is Palawan. Okay, so I want to give a backdrop. In 2012, I went into a kind of depression. Inner dance had already been going on. My depression went hand in hand with the end of the Mayan calendar. So a lot of people were thinking about, okay, the Mayan calendar is ending in December 2012. The world's going to end. I didn't listen to those sharings from a literal point of view, but I felt that something was closing, like something old, like an old chapter was closing. And I was asking many questions, like, okay, I know that healing can happen from inside, but what about outside? I live in a country that is known to be happy. The people are happy, but there's sorrow. And then there's also this inability to act. There's the sickness, if I could name it, would be disempowerment from a concrete space. It would be scarcity. It's always this statement, this drama. There's not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough love. There's not enough support. The government isn't doing enough, and and it's always like pointing at the outside, like you're not doing enough, and like and this partly could be religious. The Philippines is the biggest Asian Catholic country in Asia. It's the biggest continent in the world. So leave it up to God, to the spirit, and okay, so what can I do about it? Like there's something about that equation that's not very active as an approach to being able to do something about like the it, whatever the it is. So I went on a vision quest. I walked away from Maya in 2012, in December 21, the exact day. I didn't bring money. I was just bringing a few things, finding my way. And so I made my way to the mountains. I meditated in the mountain for a couple of weeks, and then I went down. And when I went down, I basically encountered a possibility. Okay, I encountered a possibility. And if I tell this story to you, I don't want you to literalize that this is what I'm telling you to do. Approach this from a symbolic way where whatever this means to you, to your society, to your community, I want you to think about this metaphorically, okay? Within the set of parameters or ideas I'm outlining now. Okay, let's go back to the screen. So the place that I went to was called the Mountain Province in the Philippines. This is the poorest province in the Philippines. It's huge. It's super duper big. So in the capital of the Mountain Province, which is a city called Bontoc. Okay, Bontoc City. which is a little bit like Puerto Princesa. It's a new city. It's newly minted. It's newly modernized. The mountain province is highly indigenous. It's one of the most indigenous societies in the country and maybe even Southeast Asia. It's quite recent where there might have been stories still about like headhunting, and the culture is raw. And when you make your way up there, you can feel the magic, the spirit, the mystical. Mother Earth herself is there, but at the same time, modernism had set in, and you already saw people reeling at the effects of electricity, processed food, cable television, tourism, the internet, and especially money. Okay, so when I arrived in Bontoc, I was bringing my inner dance brain, body and mind there. Bontoc was going through a crisis, which is a problem. Bontoc had a problem. This is the problem. Despite how small the population of Bontoc was, let's just I'm not an artist. I wish Flora was here. Let's say Bontoc is here. And because it's the city, it's the capital of the mountain province. The crisis at that time had something to do with waste. They had a big problem with waste. So here is where people would consume. Let's say you have all these small towns and scattered all across the mountains, and a lot of them would send their kids there to school, and so here's where a lot of consumption happens. And because a lot of consumption is happening, there was a lot of waste that was taking place. So they had to dump the waste somewhere. So the waste, let's say there was this mountain of waste here, and what that was doing is there's a river that passes through Bontoc. It's called the Chico River, that passes through Bontoc, and as the water passes through Bontoc, it would pass through this mountain of waste, this mountain of garbage. And as the water makes its way downstream, it would start to hit the other big cities. One of the big cities it hit is called Kalinga. Kalinga is actually a province. I forget the city. So Kalinga said, okay, I have a problem now. Because of your waste problem, you're ruining the water. You destroyed the water, and it's going to be it's going to kill our children. It's going to ruin our food security system. It's going to. So Kalinga said, we're going to sue. We're going to sue Bontoc province, Bontoc city and the mountain province, so that you don't put your waste there anymore. So that's actually one of the starting points. When I arrived in the mountain province, there was a crisis. There was a huge problem. Mountain province, Bontoc did not know what to do because Kalinga won. Because it is fair that if you are going to destroy the water, like we're down here. We're down here. What are you guys doing? What are you doing to us? So Bontoc was legally bound by the government, the Philippine government, that you need to do something about this problem. You need to make it go away. And Bontoc had no solid waste landfill solution. So it was really crazy. Bontoc would take these floor help, these this looks like a train. Like a garbage truck. Okay, that's a garbage truck. They would literally take this garbage truck, and then they would drive 12 hours all the way to Manila for Manila to receive the waste, when Manila already has like so much of this waste crisis to deal with, So that was the problem. It was an unsustainable way that the tribal people were unprepared for, because this came in, they got excited about the fast food and the food that comes in cans, and this wasn't the only problem. People were getting sick. Young people were getting lazy. People were getting addicted to all kinds of things. Alcoholism was starting to come about, all in a matter of like a decade or 2 decades. So there was this vicious loop. People didn't know what to do. So in comes pie. I wasn't the one to bear solution. I was merely to bring an observation to something that was already happening. So the story here has something to do with the East and the West. There was a Canadian man named Russell Meyer, who is an inventor, an artist, a community person. And I knew about him and I met him there. Russell Meyer was observing what the natives were doing. Okay. Now to the native Filipinos, the Igorots there, the Kankanay, what you call them, there's no word for waste. Because when you work with mountain people, people are very industrious. They don't like to waste. They work very hard because life is hard. So what Russell noticed was the natives had this way of taking the waste, particularly the plastic wastes, and they were for some reason or other putting them inside these floor help these bottles. So Russell Meyer was not really the founder of the eco-brick movement. It was already emerging in many places in South America, in Australia, in Africa. But Russell Meyer was instrumental in a way that he knew how to get things going. He was the Westerner who could work with the Easterners that were innovating something. The Easterners didn't know yet what it could be, but the Westerners saw that, oh, okay, this could possibly be a solution to the problems. Okay. In a way that it wasn't really just a waste problem. Like when we don't really just want to enter an ecological dimension here, because the problem has roots. The problem has roots. It goes really deep. And when you think about my journey, I was trying to address these problems, starting with, I'm not consuming anything. I'm living alone on the island. I'm eating coconuts. I'm not using electricity. I'm not riding cars. I'm not, going to McDonald's. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not in the money system. And somehow inner dance came from that. So obviously we don't want to literalize that we're just here to solve the waste problem, because if you actually become simple, there will be no waste as we know it to be. But when you know how to deal with the concrete to the abstract, the concrete can sometimes be the opening. So even though dealing with the plastic waste problem seems quite shallow, thinking about the roots, there is at least some honesty, and looking at this from an emotional mapping, allowing a person and a whole community to actually be able to do something about a huge problem already brings a kind of joy. So where Inner Dance came into the picture was via Maya. Maya as an eco-village that was learning how to build mud houses. This is our expertise. So because the tribes were already learning how to deal with wastes. Their question was, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do with it? Okay, now that we have dozens or hundreds of what they were beginning to call eco bricks, what are we going to do about it? So Maya comes in with the component that you can possibly build a school with that. You can actually build a school with that, which is what we're doing in Palawan now. So that suddenly brings two components together. Let's say in a country that's always inundated by typhoons, natural disasters, there's always like this question on what's a better way to build that's not just going to be the super cheap materials, right? That's that more. I'm back. I'm back. Okay. All right. So it's like a puzzle always. Like, okay, mud house components actually look at so many other things related to illegal logging, typhoon proof architecture. What is needed at this point, and this would be interesting for those who are interested in community. What is it like to organize people? It's hard. What does it mean to activate? We often hear this word in energy, but what does it mean to activate the society to be able to work together? I work with EcoBricks. I'm one of the founders of the EcoBrick movement, which is now a global movement like Inner Dance. It's now in countless countries around the world. You would probably find it in your own country. A lot of that movement began in the Philippines, in the northern Philippines. I have not seen a movement in the world unify schools, hospitals, governments, as EcoBricks has done. You know, we have worked with governors, with mayors, with company owners, with entire schools. So that's basically what happened. Okay, wait, sorry. Need to re-establish my app. Just so you can see what I'm thinking about, like thinking out loud. Okay, it's connected. EcoBricks, in my experience, was the biggest opener. It was the key. It was crazy. We had the whole population of Bontoc, and then Ginaang City, and then Sagada, and then Sabangan. We had towns suddenly popping up from everywhere wanting to do this because people were talking about like, oh, okay, we can do something about this. So let me do another type of screen share where I could share sound. Maybe we can just look at some clips. I documented the movement very early on. Like this is one of them. Let me know if the sound doesn't work. And if it doesn't, I don't have time to toggle anyway. So I would just
I remember the first time packing the bricks with Ginaang Wednesday.
ah, oh, why is it dark? Okay, so let's start with that. Italy said there was no sound, which is okay. What's interesting is to just imagine, like, like, right? Like, what the? So how did that even happen to begin with? It's an amazing story. It's a miracle almost. Okay, I lost the connection again. Yeah, no, I do have it. So here's like the map. It's an interesting map. When you think about it, oh no, it's not mirroring. Yeah, it's just like a few seconds. Except when you think about it, like the problem wasn't really the schools to begin with. The problem is with the government. The government is tasked to clean up the waste. But from a very creative multimodal thinking approach, cross-thinking approach. The schools actually provided the solutions. The young people themselves cleaned up the city. They really did it. They actually cleaned up the city. The government had zero solution. There was no solution. I don't think they could have come up with anything. And so we needed to find something grassroots, something that didn't require money, something that would self-organize, something that would inspire. So the concept that we held with the schools was we were going to create what's called the Inspiration Center. Okay. And in the middle of every town, there would be this like eco-brick, like maybe dome-based, and the eco-bricks would be there. And around it would be like a permaculture garden with all of these different herbal food medicine, you know, platform. People would sing songs, they would read library books, they would do art within this Inspiration Center. We tried to create the Inspiration Center back then, but it didn't happen. Right now, the structure that's coming up in Puerto Princesa is in fact that Inspiration Center that we dreamed about way back in 2013, and now in 2023 we're seeing it here. So that's the first backdrop. Sorry, I still need the screen. So this should be interesting for a lot of you. We started with one teacher who liked the idea, who required her students to do it. And then there was this one the principal of the school got so inspired that he then you know, furthered the idea to the students. Let's do this. Let's create benches. Let's create some projects from the eco-bricks that can do this. And then next thing you know, there was another principal. And then there was another principal. And then the news came to the superintendent of schools. And then before you know it, because the region, the whole region, the Cordillera Autonomous Region, it's maybe 5 provinces, was already doing it. The National Department of Education took notice. So what began with one teacher, you know, now from, you know, maybe 10 to 15, 30, 50 students, let's say 30 students. Once it reached to this level, you were already numbering. Right now, I would say the eco-bricks has probably touched not 1 million, but like millions of people. Like it started with these guys. It started with one. You know, it started with one, and now you have like whatever that number one signifies. There's something about modeling. There's something about perceiving what is a good idea in your location that could inspire and activate, that could enable people to act on a problem. So I want to feed this question to you, because when you think about children, okay, you're thinking about addiction to video games, you're thinking about apathy, indifference, you're thinking about drugs, you're thinking about violence, depending on where you're at. You're thinking about deforestation, you're thinking about global warming. So what would be a way to address like all these problems? For me, InnerDance addresses all those problems. Like eco-bricks is also a meta solution because it helps to deepen the process. For me, what I like about the eco-bricks the most is it's honest. In society, there's this reliance on the government, so that as soon as I consume this waste, this product, and then the waste is created, I throw it in the garbage, and after it goes out, I don't know what is going to happen to it. Even if there's an amazing, let's say, recycling system in your country. We were just in Paris, for example, and we were just like, wow. We would have thought that like the capital of France would have one of the best systems in place. It was like India, almost. It doesn't matter whether your city has a good system or not. There's something about giving the people the power to act out. If they're frustrated, that actually is your opportunity. So what I'm sensing here within this field is the problem is the solution. Your opening is the crisis. If there is no problem, there is not often openness, and hypothetically, like wonder. People aren't wondering because things are going so well. So why wonder? It's a waste of time. The energy you have to expend is actually in terms of maintenance, because the Philippines is beset by all of these harsh conditions. Like, let me show another video. So after that year spent in the mountain province, my daughter was born, and a strong typhoon happened right when my daughter was being born. So we were directed to a typhoon situation where entire towns were devastated, tens of thousands of people died. It was just so impossible what to do with this. So we brought in the model of the Inspiration Center. We worked together with the Earthship group from America, and we constructed this huge structure using garbage. Where's the structure? We brought in 100 people from all around the world to construct this massive building. Trying to look for the building. Okay, maybe this one. This is when it was still undergoing a process. So for those familiar with the Earthship group from New Mexico, is it? We were the first to work with them in an Asian project. They created a structure called the Windship. So it wasn't an Earthship that they created. They created the first typhoon-proof structure made of garbage, and it's called the Windship. So I speak from the ecosystem of disaster. That's why it's easy for us to do things here, because we are destroyed and wrecked. There's so many problems, so there's actually so many opportunities here, and we're actually happy about that. Whenever something horrible happens, then Maya, our inner dance, comes right in, and we're there with our notebooks, with our iPods, with our music, waiting for where this change happened from the 0 point. So that's the backdrop, Ali, that we were holding historically, so that when the local school approached us here in Palawan, it was easy for us to present that Maya is actually one of the global founders of the EcoBrick movement. And because DepEd knows the EcoBrick movement, DepEd ran the EcoBrick movement, it wasn't hard for us to open the door. And that door eventually led to, okay, we're also very interested in brain waves and brain states and psychology and so on and so forth. We're also interested in music, because that's the thing that we use for healing. And because it's post-COVID, they're interested in healing. So because we've had all this practice of going into, I only bring up disaster management in the sense that when you have a chance to work with a community that was devastated, it would mean that you actually can design the society from the ground up, from the ashes. the phoenix could arise when everything gets wiped out. So this might be something you would be interested in exploring. And I've, like after the typhoon in the Philippines, I was called to Nepal where the big earthquake was happening. So within Inner Dance, there has been this constant interest in disasters and crisis. We actually feel guided, pulled, and led to where there are problems, and that's usually where there could be possible wonder in the officials. I think that's already informing you quite a lot as to the scope or the possible scale. If you work with one school, you're actually working with the system, possibly. If you have something compelling enough, something relevant enough, that could spread if you can model that really well. And we're in line now to meet with the mayor, to meet with the congressman, to because our schooling project, Inner Dance based, Inner Dance influenced, as it is, it's cleaning up the waste problem in Bacungan, which is the second largest barangay in the Philippines. And because the principal is now about to move to Palawan National School, which is the biggest high school in the city and in the province, we now can talk to the mayor that we can clean up the whole city. This allows us to look for partners eventually. Right now, the Inner Dance energy is providing for the solutions for the needs for the building project and running the. Today we had this really interesting meeting where we sat down with one of the top musicians in the province, and one of the most awarded filmmaker in the province. And we're also working with the top artists, like visual artists. So they're now co-designing where art and music and film, which is not just sounds and images coming together. It's also writing, it's narrative, it's storytelling. It's this is an important piece because we probably would not be able to handle that many students, which there are these 800 students in Bacungan High School, and there's these 15,000 students in Palawan National School. I think to add a little bit more to context as to where does it start, where does it go, one of the questions is how in the heck were we able to bring Inner Dance into the curriculum? The people are quite amazed because DepEd, the Department of Education, does not allow people to touch the curriculum. But because during COVID, Maya actually helped with the design of the curriculum. I don't know how much to talk about that. Let me talk about that. During COVID, Fanny Ahelan, Flor, Gra kind of experienced this with us back then. Something strange was happening where schools had to close down schools in their current format. But they didn't really close down. Schools shut down as the physical schools. Okay, the physical school. But there could still be the school that's not physical, which was students still needed to learn. So there was the non-physical element. And okay, what happened? This is really, really interesting in terms of Inner Dance frameworks. In the physical school, the mode of instruction is oral, mostly in nature. Teachers, there would be, let's say, a teacher standing there, and then there's a whole bunch of students all lined up like in the army, and then here's like the lesson. In the absence of technology and the physical contact element. The Department of Education had to shift into a non-oral way of instruction, so they had to create these modules that would be printed, and you know what was being delivered orally had to be written and printed. So this is really strange. It was Floor, me, and Gra. This is really amazing and weird. DepEd chose 3 institutions to make sure that the transition from the oral to the written would be successful. They chose the Palawan State University. They chose the Western Palawan University, and for some reason or other, they chose Maya. Maybe because we were doing these other projects to do with bio waste. We had this weird project with bio waste happening during COVID, where we were feeding people by collecting cow manure, trading that for fertilizer. That's what the people in Maya from Interdance were doing during COVID when they got stuck in the island. So they chose Maya to do it. And it was so interdancey because it what we were seeing is the way people were speaking was the way people were writing, and it was so not effective. The energy of speaking was trying to translate itself into the written word, and it was so badly done. So Flor, Gra, and I were sitting up nights, like checking the whole curriculum. These are like thousands of pages of badly written material. I don't know if I should be speaking this out in public. I mean, to be fair about it, it was difficult. They were so overstressed, and they were so but because the difference between like trying to speak English orally in a post-colonial setting, then translating that into the written word when in fact people had not really adjusted to English yet in a fluency that had gone beyond the limitations of poverty, of scarcity, of lack of resources, of power dynamics, and so on and so forth. That's partly how Maya also entered the sphere, so that when we started to have meetings with them, like this year, then they allowed us to interact with them more. But my point being, the DepEd does not allow people to change the curriculum. You know, this is the first time, according to the regional director of DepEd, this is the first time an external entity, let's say this is an external entity, is allowed to work with the DepEd curriculum, the very carefully constructed DepEd curriculum that took, let's say, forever to create. We are being asked to be an NGO that is allowed to not just build a classroom, but actually to affect the curriculum. And in general, the question is, okay, what do you mean by that? So what they have given us is this subject called MAPE. We are allowed to construct MAPE from the ground up. So MAPE is made of music, and it's made up of art, it's made up of PE, and we have transformed health into healing. You know, when people think of health in MAPE, they think of like, okay, are kids getting bullied? Are they eating the right foods? You know, but because of COVID, we have brought up the healing process as a possible component. So now we have MAPE. We're creating a MAPE classroom. We've shared the images with you. And we're also constructing the MAPE curriculum. So when I say that there's an external party, Maya Earth Organization Inc., which is the NGO, is allowed to meet with the teachers and the DepEd heads themselves in order to look at MAPE as the opening. And MAPE now in Bakungan, they're also bringing in the science teachers. Okay, so let's maybe jump into the curriculum so that we can just go into the open dialogue later on. Like, what are we able to do with this curriculum now? There's a high level of trust that DepEd gives us. I think primarily because they are sensing that Maya is coming from a strong space. We're coming from a more or less abundant space. I'm not talking money or finances. We're talking about resources when it comes to an understanding of these, music, art, science. We're talking about brain systems with them. And then they know that we're into healing. And none of the teachers have expertise in any of these. Oscar was here, and he took part in the. Someone like him who's observed, he can attest to just how little the resources are of the music teachers within MAPE who know nothing about music actually. So Maya is now allowed to come in to bring in the resources, and our resources aren't our resources. We're bringing in the resources of the city. So it's still like a puzzle. We're actually just coming in so we can help bring everyone together, like in a way that they can unify within Ecobricks, within the construction of so our curriculum is very simple. I made a write-up. I'm interested in applied humanities. We'd still need to define what that could look like. I went into a humanities education when I was in university. But we're also going deep into a creation journey, creation of content, generation of content. So within the curriculum, not only are students going to learn, they're not just going to lay down and like someone's going to play music and everyone's going to trance out. Because of what we have learned from the jail program that has been going on in Manila, that has been using music. Let's put healing there, because the PDLs, the persons deprived of liberty, are also laying down into inner dance, and then they're conducting art. Our model within DepEd actually is influenced partly by. This is much older. Like Flor herself has been interested in how inner dance music can allow people to create amazing art, like spiritual art, like healing art. But because that has been modeled institutionally in the system in Manila, and maybe Sophie can talk to us about like the opening she's found in Belgium with the jail system there. A lot of our program is centered on multi-sensory integration, like synesthesia. The things that we bring up in the intensive, and in South Africa, you Lee and Ali, you guys have brought this on. We have found out that the teachers, the DepEd is actually really interested in this because it hasn't been done. It hasn't been looked at. It looks like a really simple idea, but when we bring in the brain, the notes on the brain, to be able to talk simply about the visual cortex meets the auditory cortex in the association cortex, it brings vision and audition together, along with, let's say, like meaning, like words, semanticity. The DepEd actually got really, really curious about this. Okay, we didn't think about that. So they really liked that there would be output there. So as, let's say, students, they lay down, they close their eyes, they would start to see visions of, like, I don't know, like I'm really not an artist. I'm just gonna try anything that comes to mind. They start to imagine the forest or nature. the question is, okay, so what do you do with that? So within a project-based learning or process-oriented approach, we do have the year to signify how learning occurs within these expanded brain state elements that inner dance brings about. So even if, let's say, a child is, let's say, sitting down and let's say constructing something, let's say doing art, while there's music in the background, their eyes, their eyes and their heart, the ear, let's say the ear, the eye and the ear are activating with each other. We would study together, like as our Studios Mundus group. How does learning happen when the eye and the ear are meeting, and we're healing the disconnect between these? So working with the artists, working with the teachers, the students will be working with Maya equipment, where we can maybe take the sounds from nature. We're not just, let's say, taking music from elsewhere. The students would make their own music. So the students will be constructing their own music. Call it inner dance music if you want, call it like interesting, weird, beautiful music. We don't know what the songs will be like at the end of the year, but they will be constructing their own songs, which will have sounds, which will have narratives. So obviously they will also be painting. So they will be constructing like images. They can make sculptures. They can even make their own music instruments. We had a meeting with the artists today because we're financially challenged, so we have to work with like bamboo, coconut husks. We can work with plastic bottles, and we need to make sounds out of that. The musical instruments really need to come from everywhere, nowhere, and we're not just doing that from a very analog nature. We have to work with the digital. Poor as they may be, a lot of the students do have cell phones. Some of them actually have tablets, and the school does have access to computers. They have a computer room. So we're still working with the DAWs. Ableton, Logic Pro, GarageBand still comes in, and we're bringing in the MIDI controllers in Maya, so that the students can work with the DAWs, the VST synths that can be within the cell phones or the laptops or the computers. So they can take the sounds from nature, and then they can also take in music that brings in infinite possibilities. So songs could be constructed. And then we bring in the filmmaker. We bring in Dante Garcia, who is a famous filmmaker. He won the Best Director, Best Movie Award for actually a film about Palawan. So the principals, the teachers, they're dying to work with this man. No one will say no to working with Dante. So he's bringing in the film component, and I think this would be the last component to think about what stories do we tell in relation to our lives in the personal or social sense. Like, how do we imagine change? The name of the program is Project Pangarap. And this might be useful for some of you who might be, needing a precedent elsewhere. Pangarap means dream. So Project Dream, for obvious reasons. This allows us to bring in inner dance in all its wonder, all its glory, all its possibilities, from the scientific to the spiritual. So that's pretty much the construction or content creation element, because we have been going through the frameworks over the years already, because we all know each other through the inner dance material. I don't have to maybe go into the inside of, okay, that section of the brain or this and that. Oh, sorry, just one last thing. I think it's actually really amazing though that amidst all these, and the artists were so excited when we talked about it, we're gonna bring in the EEGs. Okay, imagine this. Like, oh my God, it's like we're going to be teaching the kids neurology. Like everything we're learning in inner intensive or inner dance energy school, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call your trainings. Um, we're giving the students the same material, exactly the same material as let me go quickly into YouTube. Wait, YouTube. We placed an order for emotive brain. We placed an order for some emotive, like two emotive headsets, EEG headsets. I want to show you what it could do. This one's not so expensive. So I am screen sharing. You can see it. Anything that you conduct that will bring sense to the to the person, the brain waves would light up. So probably what we could just do is record this on screen so that we can track any changes we're creating in the music would be coordinated with the stimulus response as it comes up. So we're going to be we're still going to be working with the students with the EEGs that we've actually been bringing into the trainings. And I feel that we may see more success in the school platform than the the inner dance trainings that we've been doing in reading brainwaves. There could be so many possible experimentations. Like the one EEG we have, there's like a game where you try to move like a helicopter or a bicycle based on whatever's happening brainwaves wise. So we've been experimenting with changing the sound so that the bicycle would start moving or would not move, making the participant, either an older person or a student, conscious of the fact that it takes a certain state to be able to focus. So I think those are basic examples of what could be done, like what brings about memory functions and learning functions and attention given problems with attention deficiency, which is probably, I don't want to say everyone, but it's so widespread, attention deficiency, that to bring about metacognition, to bring about the ability for students to become aware of themselves, not just from a mental space, not just from a disembodied space, but also from a very real embodied sense. You can imagine how overwhelmed the principal, the teachers, and even the artists are that we're actually bringing this into the public school system. It's even I'm like, what? Like, really? I'm not sure, but really, it's something you'd be lucky if you took it up in an expensive university. Maybe if you're taking an MA or a PhD, you'd start working with EEGs, but we're bringing it to the public schooling system. Do we dare? Like, are we actually sure? They haven't said no. They're like, okay, go for it, go ahead. So that's like it's like a last component. So this is a lot. I've given you a lot. I'm gonna stop. Um, I would advise you not to hurry with this because if you do it well, if you plant the seed well, it's gonna grow. It's going to is going to expand. It's going to be huge. I'm going to ask Sophie to jump into something because I've actually just been waiting for an opportunity for her to share something. She had a flat tire, so she was late. So she's now safe. There's something about the jail program that you were able to break through, and I think that's very inner dance because it's a question about trust, and you were able to open the space. Ali, this is the starting point, right? Like they need to trust it. So this is a lot more inconceivable because the Belgian or European system, it's harder to speak to, much more so the jail programs. I'd like Oscar to hear this because he's talking to the jail system in Mexico. What did you do? Tell us a little bit about the context and where could this possibly go, understanding that the people you're talking to got excited enough that they're saying this could spread throughout the European region. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. It started in January last year. I'm going to sit down here. Oh, no, I'm too low. It started in January last year. I heard from a girl who teaches yoga that they were searching for some kind of yoga in the jail system. And because I have heard about Rosa and the inner dance a few months before, I contacted the prison. But yeah, they said they were interested, but they didn't contact me well back. It has been a long time that I have been pushing it, but at the end, I think it was in 2 months ago, I thought, or 3 months ago, let it go, I'm not going to push it anymore. And then just before I came to Turkey, they sent me a message saying, yes, sorry that we couldn't see you before. There was somebody ill, then there was a strike, then they forgot, but now we're ready to see you. So we met after I came back from Turkey. It was last Monday, I think, not this Monday, or 2 weeks, I can't remember. And there was again a strike, but a meeting we were having in a town. And the person of contact, his name is Gino. And he works for because in Belgium, the government is a little bit complicated. You have federal, and then you have the province. But at the prison, there are, at the province of Antwerp, people working, and then they don't work for the federal part. So I was meeting somebody who works for the Flemish part, but he has been working until last year for the European prisons. He was responsible for all of the activities held in prison. So when I met him, I didn't even have to explain all about the things I have been learning about the brainwaves. He just jumped in. He said, yeah, you don't have to explain me that. Just knowing that you would combine this with artwork, it's enough for me, because he was an arts teacher at the prison. It was, yeah, he almost didn't have to say anything. He was, like you said afterwards, it hit me, he was waiting for something. And because he was talking about, just after we didn't finish the coffee, and he was already talking about doing it on a European level, because he said if we can do it on an European level, because he has the contacts, he said, then we can free more budget, because then the Department of Justice needs to give the budget. I said, no, budget, I don't care about the budget. I said, yeah, we need to care about the budget. So it feels like he really wants to go to that. So he asked me I want to be in an experience. Can I come? So he's going to come this 22nd of October to Bornem for a session. And yeah, yesterday, oh yeah, I didn't tell you that. Yesterday there was a festen in my town, and one of the persons who work for the federal department at that same prison, she was there, and she came to me and she said, I heard you have been talking to Gino. And I explained her a little bit, and she said, if you need help, I can help you. So yeah, I think it's going to take place as from 2024, but it went so easy. I was there with all the papers, with the brainwaves to explain all of the difficult words. I didn't even have to explain that part. So, but Gino, he told me afterwards that he's really skeptical, but he said when he was 10 years old, I just said one thing that he said, just one thing that he said, I believe what you say. I said, everybody reacts out of their trauma. And then he said, yeah, I do too. And then he explained that when he was 10 years old, he had a near-death experience, that he didn't talk anybody about it because it was like 40 years ago. And he couldn't talk to people about that. So, but he said, I still react from that trauma that happened to me. And yeah, I'm very happy. What can I say more?
Yeah, this is amazing. Apart from this, because you're co-sponsoring this call, you were asking the question as well. What is the
Yeah.
school opening? Could you tell us about how you have actually slowly been introducing inner dance to teachers and now on a student level? How's that going over there?
Yeah, it started in October last year. One of the teachers, no, in August last year, one of the teachers, she asked me about a cacao ceremony. I said, yeah, we should do that. And then she said, I really want to experience like an inner dance. Then it was called another name. And I went to her place, and she had a big experience, and she talked about it at the room of the teachers at the school. And so the teachers were very curious, and then they came. So now there are 6 of them coming regularly to the sessions. Yesterday there were 2 of them. So it was with like you said, it was one teacher, one who spread it. And then this morning I was teaching a kinder yoga for children, with that teacher who was yesterday at the session. And in the kinder yoga, there's always a meditation. And so I put on the womb room. And so I said to the children, those who want to lay down, lay down. Those who want to stand up and touch bodies, go ahead. And so it just happened. And the teacher herself, she was also touching, and she was so amazed by it. She was looking at me and she was saying, look, look. It was beautiful. So yeah, they want to introduce inner dance to the school system in that particular school. There are 5 of them who are teaching in that school, who want to introduce inner dance, and one of them who is working at the school in Antwerp. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I actually remember there was a man from Austria. He holds Inner Dance Austria, and he wanted to join this call. I forgot to tell him he's not in studios. He wanted to introduce Inner Dance now to the Waldorf system in Austria. So yeah, interesting. Okay, so let's open the call. Questions, insights, ideas, observations. I think it's really interesting that there's a cascade because there's a precedent. My personal insight that just blows me away is the program in the jails actually influenced the school program so much. I see Edgar's in this call. He was working with Rosa on the inner dance program with the jails. For me, the school is a jail. So because we're liberating we were able to liberate the jail process. We actually see a way we can liberate the school process. But then everything is boxed in. So, you know, the corporation is a kind of jail as well. And what if the corporation and the jail could also be a school? But then when you bring healing, what if that could also be a hospital? So then all the colors start to talk to each other. So why don't you guys take over and speak to what you're feeling, because I know a lot of you are probably interested and are working your way into the system from somewhere outside the system, not just, you know, bringing something alternative. Now you're talking to the system. Ali is inside the system. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? What are your emotions?
I would like to take ahead the step. For those that I don't know, I am in Mexico City. For sure, my name is Oscar. And well, it was very important for me to all the context and the history pie for the cities, the river, because no, so many years ago, I already had a big experience that was having a significant movement and was done from the system. So I was I want to really to come to the calling, trying to understand if the jail process are different to the school process, and really they are not the same. So this makes me reclaim from my own experiences, tools, yes, and ways to approach, because I already have many of them without all this orientation and possibilities that you and the group is sharing here for all of us and for me. So in one hand, I would like to contextualize a bit of my experience. I was born in a city very small, but not so small. In that moment, they have 400,000 persons, and we have a river called Guatapuri River. This is located in the northern side of Colombia, in the southern side of one mountain called Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. So you mentioned the mountain, you mentioned the river. I was putting these interconnections. And I, for some particular reasons, that is not a topic, I was invited to living with this tribe that they are called Kogis. And I was living with them during 3 years and a half, and totally underway, totally not in the normal system. And through that process, I was connecting in a sensitive way and motivated to, when I was returning to the city, trying to bring in these languages, this culture. And the river was the affectation of the state of the river that go across the west side of the entire city. So parallelly, when I decide to accepting this calling, to accepting this worry and seeing the problem, in the city they wanted to run up a project to make the city in the other side of the river. So trying to expanding, as we know that the discourse say that we do something sustainable, but this is not sustainable in any way. So many things were confluencing. I don't think that it was just my approach or just was the moment, the institutions, and I found a way to be founded by a mall. Mall is the very center of the big problems that we have in the cities, but I found on them the resources from bringing different kind of activities to the school, like a poetry, photography, free writing, walking in the river, and people starting to writing whatever was coming through the river, bringing people in a safe way without shoes to having contact with in the river. Also, I was able to bring these wise older elders and teachers that I have in that moment to the universities with some translators and being able to exchange in visions. And it was capturing the interest of also in this international organization as UNO, UN, in Spanish is ONU. And suddenly I have all the pieces together and I just needed to put all these things and all these inspirations and just being attentive to observing, because it's not about illumination, it's just about being attentive, observing the needs, identifying the needs, identifying the different languages that need to be placed. Sorry for the sound. And I designed an activity that was having 3 months. And in a surprised way, the mall was presenting this approach to I wanted to bring exactly the name, to the ICSC, which is the International Council for Shopping Centers. And the idea was winning the second prize in Iberoamerica. It was something big. And thanks to that, also I have the influence to interference in the plans of expansion of the city. So concretely, I was ready to, with this movement and all these people participating, to modify permanently the plans of the expansion of the city. The city still, they sign an agreement with we say in the Spanish Consejo, which is like the senators, but for local time. So we did all this, we put this in politics, we put this in laws, yeah? The resources, the interconnection between the communities, the educative system, and also the cluster for culture, because we have a particular music, it's called vallenato, it's a music with accordion, and have very particularities in my country, and it represents to us in the world for many people. So we were able to involve in using the river as a living resource for music, and we give to the river rights as a person to be protected, to be founded, to do all these things. And right after I received this prize and all these things, I was engaged with the cooperation, the Germany Cooperation Agency for Social Responsibility, and I got this training and all these things in order to talk with the institutions. It was a very uplifting experience. But right after, what happened in Latin America, maybe in many parts of the world, is that the activism or people that do these kind of things that we are pretending, especially in the environmental layer, we used to be military target for the people that they have interest in expansion. So some people wanted to do we call represa, when you stop the river for generating hydroelectric, yes? So I was pushed back by these people, and I let go all these things, and I don't want to be involved in things of pressure, hostigations, and I prefer to silence myself, and I released this experience. But now that I'm here understanding what is the purpose, I was a bit insecure, maybe too much insecure about how's supposed to be the process with the prisons and how's supposed to be the process with the school from inner dance. Of course, there's different lines and the construction of the language, and also the different contexts from different regions in the world. But I'm very excited that I feel super empowered by this calling, because just days ago I was expressing in the Studios Mundos chat that I didn't found the people or the doors open, and the day after straight I was meeting the right people, making alliance with another person that will close to meet to Pi, Val Alino. She's a very interesting leader here, and she has been very touched by our exchange and my background in this area. And also I met a person that is studying these lines of inner dance with me, that her husband is handling a big GMO organization to that they are providing activities to 21,000 children in Mexico, and all these doors has been just opening right now. So for me, it's very inspiring to be here, to just also not just for listening what you are doing, guys, which is really appreciated, and I will stay here in the calling for the next contributions, but also to see that there's not so much difference in what I was doing, and something is becoming alive, because I already needed to deal with interlocutorial things, handling children, going to the river, making art, making music, talking with indigenous, with the lawyer, with the mayor and the governor. So I just feel very much inspired. I feel that the things are already, there's an energy already running and pulsing this through all of us. So we just need to trust, and having enough trust in the circumstances and in the knowledge, the preparation that we are having. And as another thing that can be contributive to the discussion, of course, as we are in different regions, we as facilitators of this process, we need to contextualize the different needs and the cultural settings that they are proper from the local thing that we want to board in. The other thing is, what is the interface of the language that allow to us to hold what we are offering from inner dance, but is translate to the languages that identify the needs that this population, these groups, they have, and the possible solutions where the different layers that we are bringing through inner dance processes, they are very much well identified. And in the way that I am approaching or understanding here from the conversation, for how I feel, it's like a triad between psychology, science, and music or arts, yes? So this triad will allow to us to build the program that can have dialogues with the people that are supporting the children in the school, with the people that is in charge in the jails, because through psychologists, and art, we already have the access to that, yeah? And also through the things of art, which can be also include music, but not necessarily music, there's an opportunity also for generate content and sharing this content out of these walls. So yeah, this possibility of how this can become metacognition, the space for the process of knowing about themselves, and how the education and all these different environments can be delivered in a human understanding and a productive and emotional service for society and for the problem that we are part, and we are the system that we are part, and yes, trying to contribute with something different. So yeah, thank you. I just feel that I ended.
Amazing. Thank you. Maybe let's listen to Ali as the sponsor of this call, like landing this in South Africa, where you're and hearing these amazing stories from Sophie, from Oscar, from here in the Philippines. And what do you feel now based on the question you were initially holding?
So many things. So many things. I feel I'm like overwhelmed with how much is actually coming to me during this call. This has been absolutely incredible. So thank you guys. Seriously. I know for Lee as well. It's really sparking so much. This is unbelievable. I think part of this, and I guess part of my question of starting, is actually this call. It's actually opening within myself. I know that's a part of, I think just a part of my own process, but I think part of a process like this is just breaking down resistances and understanding those blocks a little bit more, and just creating these openings and these dialogues that help so much. I think okay, just to say, a part of my process is that I feel I process quite slowly, and I think if you were to call me in 4 hours time, we could have a really long conversation. So there's a lot in here, and I'm feeling a lot, and I think it will unfold. But right now, maybe what I can express, those mappings, Pi, really resonated with me and just kind of helped with my sort of question, that starting question. Especially so in the beginning when you were speaking about what is the energy of the problem, and what is that showing us? I immediately got this feeling, or what does this problem feel like in South Africa? I immediately got this feeling of this heaviness, and this burden and this overwhelm. And I think that ties into why I'm actually asking this question in the first place, is that in South Africa, it is overwhelming. And I know this probably resonates in many parts of the world. It is really overwhelming. And Pi, when you speak about how you guys do a lot of work from, disaster management, that also resonated with me. I feel like for many, many years, South Africa has been in disaster management based on our history, and we're still currently going through processes of kind of disaster management with our people. And so it makes sense, that context is very, very similar. But this feeling of this heaviness, and this like stuckness, it's like the thick, heavy stickiness where people are still stuck in these situations and there's just no movement. And there is this feeling of like this desperation, and there's no light, and there's no air, and there's no breathing. And so it was really interesting to me when you were mapping out these emotions, and the wonder and the what was the word? I wrote it down. Indifference. Yeah, thank you. That for me just was everything, because I think what we will do here by bringing inner dance to schools, and what's already happening with the addiction clinics, and there's another session that's starting tomorrow with another community. What's happening already is it is happening already, but what inner dance will bring is more of this wonder and this light and this curiosity and this self exploration. And I think that's what's needed to counterbalance what's actually happening, which is an indifference, and like the feeling that I was getting, and the communities that I have in mind here that really need this energy. There is this massive indifference, which leads, indifference for their life and their souls and their beings and who they are, which leads them down the road of, gangs, which is a very big problem in specifically Cape Town, and drug use and all of that. And so that for me was a massive mapping of kind of why and what we need to do here and what this energy holds. I think, and like going back to what I said about that overwhelm, I think what you said in the beginning is almost too much of looking towards a solution. And we can't in a way, because there's just so much and there's so many problems, But if we look towards these things like the emotional mapping that you were speaking to, it just becomes a lot more easier for me to kind of start thinking about and working out. What was coming to me before the call as well was, and we've spoken about this word before, prevention, and I think it's just a massive topic for just our local context. And what was coming to me was this idea of sort of this prevention before intervention, because I think in South Africa there's a lot of crisis and intervention and management at that point where it's almost like it's gone too far, or I don't want to say too late, but it's, if we can get to these problems before, obviously it would help a lot. But to kind of explain my thinking, a few years ago, I did this volunteer work at this animal rescue shelter, Dog Lee in Hout Bay. And they have this amazing system on their property where they take, and I can't remember how they got the students, they take students from the local community nearby who are, and they call them at risk, and they are at risk they're at risk for becoming a part of gangs, basically, and falling into that cycle of violence and drug abuse. So they take these teenagers, they're about I think they were about 14, 16. And what we'd do is we'd walk the dogs on a lead around, and the boy, mostly boys, they would take the dogs and have to lead them in specific ways and patterns and control the dogs. And then after that, we go into this little classroom and we do a little lesson. And sometimes the lesson was just on like manners, or give them scenarios of, if you're in this scenario, how would you react? What would you say? And give them other alternative reactions on what to say. And we brainstorm those ideas. Sometimes it would be a lot more direct, and there's like speaking to the gangs and speaking about the drugs, and there's a lot of dog fighting in those communities, and discussing why these are all issues and stuff. But my feeling there, and I remember speaking to the lady who's organizing it, and I think this is the general feeling, it was amazing. It was really insightful to engage with these kids and see things opening up for them. But at the same time, it was quite bittersweet, because you could also see, the sticking points in them through the conditioning and their, what they've learned through their environment. And it's that feeling again of, it's almost too late. And I hate to say that. I don't, I want to remain open and optimistic, but that is the feeling based on that environment. And so it's like, those kind of programs are so needed, but we need to get there before. So for me, that's what I think a lot of the work in South Africa will be about. And it's actually interesting, that community, I think they were from the Hamburg IY community, which seems to be a community that's knocking on our door. There's a township community. And, a lot of the work that Lee and I do with Inner Dance here is with people who can afford sessions, and they're wealthier, but a lot of the energy that's actually knocking on the door is the communities that really need the help. It's not necessarily who we were kind of speaking to, but they're speaking to us, which is amazing. So I think things are shifting. It's a lot. And like I said, I need some time to integrate and process what's been shared with Sophie as well, and Oscar. And incredible. But just to share that kind of feeling and thinking and context from South Africa and from this brain.
We need to be clear that in South Africa, there is already a whole bunch of starting points. The region, or the location where you guys are at, it's talked about because of the addiction programs that Ricky, Lee, and the community in general has been working with. I'm really happy that you bring up schools, because this is something Lee has been looking into, because it's still chicken and egg. Schools is closer to the egg, or is it the chicken? Closer to the source where things begin, and you are an insider in that system. But now that we're looking at societal mapping, listening to Sophie, it blows our mind that she just needed to talk to one guy, but then just that one guy is already talking about the whole system. I think one of the main insights in this call is you actually need to start really small, and then that smallness is super big if you do it with a lot of care and stamina and centeredness and multi-layeredness. I want to bring up a really quick insight to maybe complete some of the mappings that I initially brought up with the emotional map, talking about wonder, indifference, sorrow, joy, responsibility, power. Um, so there's still like this involved with, I mean, essentially, look, what are we really talking about in inner dance? What are we contributing? What are we offering? When you do bring up something like Africa, you cannot deny the body. You cannot bypass the body. So something happening in the philosophies and the neurosciences and the cognitive sciences and the spiritual awakening is that the mind and body are becoming one. So listening to the Masio speak and Malibu speak, and I will share some of the lectures that really, for me, I've been studying them for a while, but it really just makes clicking noises in my body and in my mind only recently, coming from Europe. Let's say when you bring up a concept like trauma, which was brought up in Studios Mundos as a question, and we can bring up other concerns, say, what about addiction? What about knowledge? The problem is that the mind and body are separate, so we don't always know how to approach a specific problem. So let's say when you when you think about, let's say, it could be like a medical crisis. It could be a cancer. It could be a diabetes problem. It could be a tumor of some sort. Like normally people would go straight here into this before they would go into this because the problem lies here. But then when you deal with integrative doctors who are now interested in the root cause, like what's the deeper underlying mechanisms of the cancer, then they know they have to go here somehow, that the physical ailment has something to do with an emotional concern or belief structure or life experiences that have brought about like a conditioning. So here's where psychology maybe holds expertise. Here's where medicine holds expertise. But now what we're seeing is there's a bridge work taking place where a lot of the people who were intent on merely the psychological, the psychoanalytic, the psychiatric, they're realizing that we cannot bypass the body, we can come up with a mind map, but if we don't understand how the body actually holds information, maybe stores information, transmits information, the process is very, very incomplete. So what we're healing is the split, this mind-body split needs to go. There needs to be congruence. So the aspect of medicine or the cognitive sciences that's interested in healing the split would be, let's say, when you think of neurobiology or the neurosciences, this is at least a physical component that holds a lot of the psychologies in view. Because there's a lot of psychology that maps out when you do study the brain and the nervous system. So in, let's say, the traditional elements of, let's say, psychoanalysis, a lot of the problems would be understood from a very symbolic, very, very symbolic and also abstract level. So when you think about trauma, like a lot of the explorations, whether it be therapeutic or whether it be just like like curiosity or interest, we work with symbols. Basically, we work with dreams, we work with neuroses, we work with thought patterns. So when you do go into, let's say, the more neurobiological or medical or something body based, then what you're dealing with are like circuitry. What you're dealing with are neurotransmitters, hormones, and these tend to be quite concrete, meaning you can actually observe what is happening, which in this space is very much, in a sense, like unobservable, because what is abstract is always in a river-like flow of transformation, and this stays somehow. So a lot of this is in a way actually turning to this. But a lot of our maps in neurobiology is actually coming still from the philosophies, from maybe the initial observations of Freud, of Lacan. So they need to very much speak together. So anyone who does integrative work would need formulations that's mind and body based. This would be relevant whether you're dealing with schools or with hospitals or with jails or with governments. With inner dance, we're not just studying how the body is affected, how the body experiences emotions and how we can map out these emotions. We're sensing as well how the autonomic nervous system could rise up and act out scenarios, situations, problems, the energy of problems in a way that the body itself can affect the mind. So I think it's actually quite amazing that we have this understanding of sorrow, of wonder, of joy, of despair, of anger, of guilt and shame. And it's not just up there. We actually can contextualize this. We actually now have a chance to hold bodies in a way that's also very concrete. We know how addictions work. We know how insight could happen with the flick of a switch, with small adjustments in certain waves, frequencies, certain timings. Whether this be clear in neurobiological terms or not, people who know how to hold bodies within the inner dance wave, you do know, you know the body, you know the switches, you know somehow there's certain ways of touching, there are certain musics, there's certain words that can activate. So we're compelled, we're provoked, we're evoked by the fact that we have something to contribute. And now the question, how to translate, like where to. So I do want to just give in this one piece, if the emotional maps are interesting. This is important, primarily because, let me go back to the screen. When you think of the mind and when you think of the body, emotions would be in the middle, because emotions are felt here. Up here, they're felt as feelings, right? Down here, in the work of Damasio, which I really, really appreciate and love, I want to acknowledge it. He perceives something as base level as immunity, and even metabolism as actually being emotional. And he gets away with this as the neuroscientist of emotions. Let me take out this word. The core term he brings up is homeostasis. That emotions is the language of homeostasis, which is how the body self-regulates, how the body coordinates itself according to either survival issues or thriving issue, just thriving or surviving. And so when we talk about Africa, and we talk about all of us are part of Africa, and we've been on Earth for a deep story, for a deep time. How long have we been also in this fight or flight, this survival mechanism, this coping, this death denial function, this pain avoidance. So how do you then take what you know, either from a spiritual, energetic, embodied, or scientific level, going into the further study, going into further dialogues? And one of the best ways to study is really to find a project, to honor the in-between. And I think emotions, as it comes to us now, is quite interesting as a mind-body solution. It's not a problem. It's a mind-body solution. What would be a different way of mapping emotions and homeostasis, knowing that it's a self-regulatory mechanism? When we do think about institutions, institutions are the emotions of a society, because for me, when I think about a school is just as much for the parents as they are for the children. They actually allow the economy to run, because then the parents can just go to work. They don't have to take care of the children. The children can get an education, so the economy now needs to take care of the children, even as the parents need to become part of the like productive parts of the economy. So it needs to circulate. So for me, if emotions will be defined as that, as homeostasis, then governments are part of homeostasis, schools, family systems, religion, they're all part of they're like the emotional body of the earth. And Africa would be a starting point. Going back to that, it began in Africa. Why was that there? When the inner dance, like, within this reversal of time, this horrible, this recursion in time space, why was that spoken, like, to begin with? And that's been spoken to you guys, and you're in a state of wonder about that. So I thought that would be interesting for you guys as a mapping. I will send you. I sent the book, but I can send that again for those who are interested in looking for Spinoza by Damasio, and I'll send this talk by Malibu, Emotional Life in a Neurobiological Age, where she does talk about these things. All right, others? Any in notebooks? Interesting
I
things?
can.
Yeah.
Oh, Lee, go.
Are you sure? I'm happy for you to go
Yeah.
first.
No, okay. I can share something, just as I'm listening, and then I've been observing some of the processes, like Sophie. So I was thinking, what are the factors, like what are the moments in the process in us, and then in a societal level, like what actually makes it happen, that moment when things just align? Like, sorry, and it's 3 a.m, so my brain is a bit blurry, but I was watching it today when we had a meeting with we're planning the school project with some local people here. One is a movie director, one is a musician, and then we have one painter. And then we went back to the moment when we actually did the inner dance session in the school, and it was like a preparation of thinking, like, having dialogues here also, what's possible? Are we able to put the kids to lay down, or what are we doing with them? And there was this question in my mind, like how to bring the inner dance to the schools or the process. But then when it actually happened, we had no plans to do it. Like, there was not a plan in me and Pine that day when we went to the school that this is the day we would put them to lay down, or now we do process, or now we go into the session. But what I remember from the feeling, what was there, we went there, we had 3 hours with the kids, and there was just really somehow this full trust or clarity. What I felt inside was like, this is totally normal. Like, it couldn't be more normal to just explore with them and go into the process with the sound and putting the kids to facilitate each other and doing like small experiments in it. And then I was thinking why it was so effortless in that moment. And then why the feedback was so good. So today when we had the meeting with the artist and we were just going back to the moment when we actually, so they asked us, did you actually, because one of them have inner dance experience from back in the days in the Philippines, they're Filipinos from Palawan, and then they were kind of surprised how we were able to do this type of work in the Philippine schools. And they were asking about it today. And then we were explaining, and we were telling them that we also put the teachers to facilitate each other, and even one of the kids to facilitate one of the teachers, because there was not the equal pair. And then I just asked the teachers to participate instead of being on the background and observing what the kids are doing. And because the sharing of the teacher was very personal, they went into their stress, what visions they saw, and I asked them to share in front of the kids what was their experience. And these Filipino artists, people who's been working with kids in schools, they were kind of mind blown, and they asked, like, really? Like, in our system, the teachers actually told something personal in front of the kids. Like, how is that possible? Like, how would they actually break those authority or like the authority system in the school? And none of it was planned. So I was thinking this where things suddenly aligned, or there's a momentum, and maybe related to my work in the NGO world, and where a lot of the international, like a global research of the programs that NGOs are doing, what are actually the success stories, or when things work and when they don't. And then I was watching it, like, usually, and this is a little bit messy in my brain, but I've been observing Sophie's process, because she's been holding inner dance, and also in South Africa, you guys been doing it very consistently. And this I felt in Finland too, that when I was actually living there, or when I'm now living here, and there's some consistency of our own environment, and there's like equally the process inside of us that is like Oscar was saying a few days ago, he was doubting that this is not possible. There's like, how can I bring it to jails, because they are wanting to punish the prisoners, not to help them in Mexico, or maybe in Colombia the same. And then suddenly a few days after, there's like that moment of alignment when we meet the right people. But I feel like it's only possible if we are part of the society and the system we're living in. And we're kind of doing already the groundwork. Like, we are, like, the people who might end up to Sophie's processes might be the teachers or the mothers. This happens to Finland, that old school teacher of me and Johanna had a talk with her, and then she's the teacher in a school where we used to go when we were teenagers, and that opened the doors to her to go and do inner dance with the teenagers in the school just last year. So there's this thing where we never know who ends up into our circles or the sessions, and that if we're just doing what we're doing or our own surroundings, there's somehow already an energy where it feels that the process or the energy works from inside. So when we are inside the system, so we're influencing when Pai said we start from small, but then we don't actually know how big it is already, even the small contacts or talks. And then this related to my work in the NGO, and what was all the results there is that not like projects or things where we try to help and where the problem is really big. There was hardly any sustainable solution if someone from outside or something from outside tries to come and fix it with the solutions that are not from the actual community. And then now I'm watching, like, we are actually ourselves part of the community we are living in just by living in a city or a town or an area and doing what we do. And then if there's alignment and we feel without pushing it or thinking inner dance should go to this area of society or that sector, and how can I put it there, just by like also having these dialogues and networks to believe it's possible in the weirdest ways. And then then it's very inspirational to listen, like, oh, it's actually happening, like what I'm observing it right now and this year a lot, like why suddenly it feels that inner dance has jumped into so many sectors in society, and what has been or it seems to be the key factors to make it possible. It's kind of the people who are already there in the system or living in the place, and there's been something already bubbling for years or weeks, and then there's this momentum when things just happen, and it can be like magical, but actually there's already something happening before that moment. So yeah, just wanted to say I'm very inspired to listen to you guys and looking at together, and then also finding some interesting like patterns or something, like, oh, it works this way. So when hearing you, it also gives more trust that we can just continue doing what we're doing. Okay, that's my 3 a.m. Yay.
Okay, yeah, she jumped off. Lee, hear from you now.
I need to be honest and say that I feel like my heart, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack, but I think it's not a heart attack. I think my heart is like exploding. I feel like so much on these pieces of paper here, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, and I feel it's just the timing of this call, and actually around something that's happening tomorrow. It feels really, really significant. Life. She actually lives in another township in Hout Bay, and she's going to be bringing some people from there as well. And it's two communities that have never really ever experienced the inner dance process before. And so, yeah, I've been haven't really been thinking about it too much. Like, I know it's tomorrow, but it hasn't really been, like, it's been there, but I haven't had so much feelings towards it as I am feeling about it right now. Ended up like Googling Khayelitsha. Khayelitsha is the name of this township, and I was just looking at this township as Paya was speaking earlier, and looking at a picture of what it looks like from like an airplane, and it's like, I don't know, Ali, how many like of those townhouses? I can't even imagine, hundreds of thousands. Like I can't even.
Probably hundreds of thousands. I would have no idea how to, but
like hundreds of thousands
and shacks.
Shacks. Sorry,
not
shacks.
houses.
Shacks. And they live on top of each other. It's like these shacks, and it's huge. It's huge. It's probably thousands times bigger than the township that we're dealing with in Hout Bay, which is super, super small. And when you were talking about the inspiration, you call it the inspiration centers, I started seeing something. I started to see something. I started to have visions. Like, I could see things, like, I guess dreams of like what could happen. And I don't know how they could happen, but I just started seeing things, and I've drawn things on this piece of paper here. And yeah, I think that I started to write down here like the problems that, kind of just looking at this picture in a Khayelitsha, I was just like, what are all the problems? And there were so many problems, and like it just became like it's all kind of been coming together in bits. And I feel tonight like something like became clearer for me, like something became like much, much clearer. and actually Ali doesn't even know this. I actually forgot to tell you, but the woman who runs the addiction clinic, she wants her and her staff, they want to now experience the process. And so we have a date already set. Ricky is on it, and we're going to be facilitating this in a month from now. And they want to experience it, which is something you said just now about, teaching the teachers, and it's not just the people that are having the problems. It's now, they also now want to, Ricky had a meeting with her the other day, and she was just like, all of her clients, all they talk about is inner dance. That's all they want. They're like, just more. That's all they ask for. So I think that she's become like really, really curious as well. And then, I ended up, it's so interesting. Like when we started the call tonight, I drew like a reversal spiral, like something needs to go back in, like something has to go back. And towards the end now, I drew the same thing, was connecting in with, just the earth, the music, the Mother Africa, what is here, what has been forgotten, the song, the earth song, the songs, and like there needs to be like a reversal, and like lots of questions around like what is here, it's sitting, I feel like we're sitting on it. It's here, it's like right here, and it's knocking on the door. And the feeling I have is like, I can feel there's a part of me, like on a personal level, that's holding something back, or like I need to let go like of something, in order for it to, on a, like maybe my own fear or my own resistance, as Ali was talking about. Like Ali and I speak about it often. We know like there's something, but there's also just so much resistance to it, and it's almost like maybe we're thinking about it too hard, or we're trying to like figure it out with our mind. And there's something really practical, and I think that's also what came up in this call today. Like there's really practical starting points that we could actually try, and and I feel like there's also questions, and lots of questions that I wrote on these pieces of paper that I don't quite know the answer to. And I think that the key with Africa is that people are so desperate. I think that that's also what's happening. It's like the problem and the solution, because as Ali said, like it's so beyond bad, but at the same time, it's so beyond bad that they're so desperate that they'll try anything, that it's actually easy because it's so bad. So it's actually like the answer. And I think that's why what Ricky and I have been doing has been working, because it's so bad and they don't have money, and they don't have psychologists there that can even assist them or help. And so we're, and they just like, we are so desperate, we have nothing. This is working, like, and like the children, I mean, as Ali has said, like it comes up for both of us. This, I have worked with children in the past, also in a volunteer basis, and just what dance brings to them, and music, on like just a simple level, like it just opens their hearts. It changes everything. It really just it actually is so simple. It's just, I guess, about, yeah, I feel like there's something now, maybe we're looking at this on a bigger scale, whereas, and I think, you know, it's like the time is now, you know, so yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
I want to bring something up that's incredibly deep. So I was with Italy in a shopping mall. It was incredibly noisy, and I got this message. It's sent in confidence. I won't really speak too many details about it, but basically, it's not within the inner dance construct. It's still within the Kundalini process. So a person had facilitated someone close, and then there's something that I've seen in the past often where something goes really all the way there, so that the system got worried, and some worst case scenarios happened. This is in Germany. And I was reading this, I was in this loud space, and I wanted to support because I felt for the people who were going through these elements. I don't know how to entirely speak to it because the languaging that's being used, it's, you know, these tendencies are there in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in the Americas. These tendencies are there based on the paradigms that are being held. When I was reflecting on it as I was responding, what do I say to this? And I did try to help. It was so alien to me. I had these memories of, yeah, this is something I've seen, but because it hasn't happened in so long, it was really interesting for me to look at that. It's happening now in the world where this tendency is there. We could go there, and there are so many different names to call it, from a spiritual or psychological or even psychiatric perspective. This is there. It's something that is within the human experience. But because I'm immersed in this, talking to government, talking to schools, and talking to people who are also in the same conversations within systems, I can't imagine like the program in Africa where the process is happening within the addiction center, for example, the addiction clinic. I don't see this happening, primarily because of the way things are being held, the way things are being languaged, the ways certain music is being used. But one never knows, because, and I'm not even creating a judgment that that's not supposed to happen, because when something does happen, it is needing to happen, because healing is taking place in all sorts of ways, within the self and within society. And sometimes when something comes up, it's meant to be looked at. And that's the only way I could respond as well to this case in point in Europe, where something is needing to be looked at. So trust is still the starting point. But I do want to share this, that there is something in the energy that allows this to be scaled in a way that we can introduce this in very normal settings, because we've grown into this possibility. Like inner dance started from something raw, something definitely profound and powerful. I'm not gonna say it's less powerful. It's still the same energy, but it somehow is where we are speaking from now. So we're saying a lot of words, but one of the reasons why we do go to these calls is there's a dimensionality in which there's a lot of layers. There's just a lot of layers that's been there, that's been, you know, been through like a lot of these that holds something stable, like stable enough that this could possibly like systematize. I don't want to put too many words into it, but listening to the possibility of Africa, where there's something so pent up, we I don't want to approach this from like a careful standpoint, because that's not my energy. It's just more in observation of there would still be that same depth that inner dance has always held. So like in the school, the inner dance processes we hold, it's like 10 minutes long, but like the sharings is something you'd hear from someone who did like 90 minutes or at least an hour. So there's something about doing it in like simple and small ways that actually holds something big. So yeah, thank you for your sharing. Am I still on? Oh yeah. Okay. So sorry for taking up more space. It's really open space. Anyone else would like to share? And thank you for those who shared so far. And then let's close maybe in 20 minutes on our 3-hour mark.
Hi, Akhilania. It's really interesting time to see all of those things happening around the world. And when we look into this, actually we are talking about prison being actually a school, a hospital, the prison itself, and all the way home. All for me feels like a prison, like a system within the system. And we are talking about that we are moving towards the system, or we are going into the system. From another perspective, for me, while listening to some of the patients with the doctors, and also while listening to all of you and to some kids doing inner dance, there's something about that the system is talking to us. There's something where they are speaking to the energy itself is intelligent, that it is using the way how it can speak to us, then that we are going inside the system. And I find it very interesting because it has something to tell, which is very old, which is trying to tell in many ways and finding an opening to talk to us, that it can be listened to, it can be heard in many levels. And when Pi brought up today and lately the emotion and the mapping of emotion within the mind body, I feel there is much more to dig into how the personal, the human body is set, as well as the global body and the systematic body, and how they are each talking, how they are talking to each other, and what is to be shared from those prisons, from those systems. They're really looking forward for these things to unravel. Yeah, thank you for sharing and being here.
Yeah, anyone else would like to contribute their thoughts and sound?
Hi, Fanny here. Actually, I'm actually curious to hear how it's gonna develop, especially in the prison. I haven't been in the Philippine prison when I was there. I'm wondering how it's gonna be in Europe, because it's a very different system. I feel like we had a bit more freedom in the Philippines, in the sense that I don't know if it's going to be the same in Europe, but we were kind of like allowed to hold it how we want it, and I didn't know at this point to hold it like a spiritual workshop. How would I approach it? How would I speak? You know, how to open up and talk. Also trying to put myself in the shoes of not the prisoners, but the people deprived of liberty. The DPL, PDL.
Yeah, PDL.
PDL, PDL. So it was very interesting because we were like I came when Rosa was already like within a few sessions, and so it was like slowly sitting down, and with the art and with everything like coming together, and then we made them lay down. I think it was the second or third time that they laid down, and it was very interesting, and it's like another space of exploration. So I feel that it's very interesting. So I'm really curious, Sophie, how you're like, if there's any conditions or if there's any ways or structure to respect, or if you're free actually to do whatever you want. So this is going to be very interesting to hear and to continue to listen to. And yeah, something that came when, I don't know, everyone was sharing is that all of these systems, like the school and the prisons, it's like if we look into the school, a lot of the time the education is looking at kids as like little beings that don't know and they're learning. So in a way, they're kind of like seen as, they're not adults, you know, they're not like, they're kind of like immature, or they're not like able to hold themselves in society yet. So they're learning to go there. When we look into prisoners, it's like they're supposed to, but they did something wrong that they cannot do. So they're still having, or they're seen by society as this like immature being, or like person or human that is not able to actually like hold itself in society. So it feels that there's kind of like there's still a hierarchy that is being held in that way of seeing things. And it's interesting if we can see this and observe them. And I think the approach in Inner Dance that I like is that we are being equal and giving them back kind of like this sense of self, and this sense of like they are good enough as they are, is really how we can look into this. And the same thing for children, like they're still learning, and there's a lot of like authorities around them, like the parents and the teachers and the principal and like all the adults around them. But I think it's a beautiful approach to see that it's all the same. It's all the same way to give them the way to realize their own responsibility. And so something that came to my mind that I wanted to share. And I'm super excited, and I'm really happy to hear more. Also, what is happening in South Africa is really amazing. So super happy to hear and to see the continuity of all the projects. Thank you.
So if you want to share some of your ideas so far.
Yes, thank you, Fanny, for asking that question. When we were in Turkey, I had discussed with Pai about what was possible to do in prison, because I had the same thing, like, are we going to hold the bodies or not? And Pai said, do not talk about holding the bodies. In Manila now we are combining it with art. And so it was a coincidence that the person of contact was an art teacher in prison. So until now, he likes the idea of combining arts with inner dance. But the 22nd, he is going to come for a session where there's only laying down. So I'm also very curious about how he's going to undergo the process. And because he knows the persons who live at the prison for the moment. So he said to me, I'm not going to allow everybody in in the room, because I didn't said it before, it's a new prison and there's a lot of space to do that kind of activities. And he said there were a lot of young men who just want to have fun and want to do activities, but are not going to go into the introspection. And he said, I know the persons who are really going to have some advantage of that. So I don't know if it's still going to be with only art or if the lying down process will take place, but I feel like I can trust that man. And he said it's a good prison. There are persons who are not open for that kind of process, but he said those are not going to be there. So I was afraid to hold those bodies, but now I'm not anymore, because I feel like he knows the people. He has been working for 23 years in the system, and I feel like he knows the people who are there, and he really, I love the fact that he respects the people there. He talked with a lot of respect. One of the persons who used to be PDL is now a trainer of the football team of the juniors of Anderlecht. I don't know if you know something about soccer, but Anderlecht is really a big team. And so he helps. He really wants to helps the people who are there. It's not just let's do an activity. So he wants them to do the introspection and to come better, to have the place again, or to feel better again when they come out. So yeah, thank you for asking the question.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great, and something maybe that I can share. A lot of my process was to unlearn my own views of a prison, because when I you go through, there's a lot of security guards and everything. You're like, okay, that's intense and everything. But then being inside, I was like, okay, these are just human beings, like, hi, how are you? Like it didn't matter at that point what happened. I didn't know their story or anything. So it really removed something from me, because I had this very American prison movie like idea, and I actually was and also the Philippine, like the prisons in the Philippines is not the same as like the prisons that we have in Europe or in the States or Canada. So I was like, okay, I went into a very big process of unlearning and conditioning myself. So it was very interesting. So I think it's a good approach, because he seemed to be also very open, and they're very close to each other. That's what I also understood. Like they are together. So there's a camaraderie that is being present. So yeah, I'm very curious. I'm really curious to hear more. So thank you for sharing. It's really, really nice.
Thank you, Fanny.
Yeah, it's great we could use this call to update on this particular emergence happening in Belgium. It's actually quite exciting. Oscar, you raise your hand?
Yes, thank you. Well, I would like to maybe to say another thing that maybe can be used as an input, but of course can be obvious, but sometimes the obvious things are the hardest things to see and to take and to assume. Well, as you was a phrase that you said, I don't know if it comes from you or come from Damasio, where the institutions are the emotions of the society. Yeah.
I was taking that from the call. Like that's coming from all of us today. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, because the approaching of these institutions and having the relationship with that metaphoric and deep reflection, for me, it was very insightful. I have to say that this was very, very touching. So when approaching to institutions as a school, and we see the similarities about the prison, it was very clear, but also they are still having the purpose of educating in different environments, yes, and returning, giving capacities from different states of development, evolution, and relationship with the system and the law. Yeah, but basically, to approach into the jails or another institution like this is like a reaffirming the purpose of the idealistic purpose of the institutions, because even if we know the corruption and whatever, or the different styles of handling a jail or schools, even I'm sure that there should to be some schools that they can be heaven, or another it can be a hell for the children that they are in the schools. Of course, then some jails that can be more than jails, can be very difficult in general. So with the purpose of recognizing the original emotion that represent this institution, the contribution, we are just supporting the same purpose that is already there, and integrating the dynamics and the tools we are able to handle and deliver. But I just wanted to bring this reflection about what you say, the institutions about are the emotion of the society. I think that it was very important to bring it here again. Thank you.
Yeah, I think these are good ways to close. So let's close. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Fanny. And then thank you, everyone else. There seems to be something happening here. This call feels super alive, super vibrant, but also like super grounded, safe, yet radical. Speaking about emotions, speaking about what I wanted to speak to you, Lee, was talking about that big township with all those townhouses, those shacks. And now you guys are moving into a much bigger space. I think this would be a good time to think about the youth. This long inquiry you've been thinking about, like it's the young people who hold possibility for hope and excitement and wonder as to what do we do about these problems. There's so many case studies in India, in China, in different countries, even in the Philippines, where the youth actually hold a lot of the solutions to the problem, but taking into consideration this hierarchical point of view that the students are meant to be instructed, and then they're not really meant to be the source of energy. Thinking about the students, thinking about society in general, thinking about emotions, when would be the time to unleash that which is like pent up, like held down? It's that which is in the body, this power, this wisdom. I think something we can contribute to the redefining of emotion is when you look at it from this Damasio way of looking at things, emotion could also be the same as logic. If logic is also a homeostatic way of just planning things out, putting things in order, organizing the system, then emotion doesn't always have to be this traumatic, like dark shadow trauma. Then maybe a higher way of understanding or naming emotion is it could also be a seeing process. So going into this point of how do we interact with an institution? Do we judge? Do we become alternates? Do we think we have it better and you guys are just not doing a good job? Thinking about Sophie with this person that she's talking to, thinking about, let's say, Rosa and Paul doing the thing with the jails. Fanny had like she worked with them there. Thinking about the meeting we had with the artists and with the teachers as well. Like thinking about Sophie and this man, they're co-facilitators. They're actually going to co-design the process together, which came out of the first meeting already that they had. It's like he's already been doing some of the art elements, but the soundscape thing is quite new. So I think with the school, what we're interested here in Palawan is at what point would it be where the students actually start to take on the system, where education starts to happen from the ground up, where there's less dependency on what's up there, wisdom starts to emerge from down here. Whether you call down the body, the grassroots, the disempowered, the unvoiced, the colonized, because there's so much resources in the earth. We're not actually tapping into the resource because we're in control. We're trying to control the resource, or certain elements are trying to control more of the resources, and humans are actually considered resources, not so much just like sources. So at one point, and any time we introduce something into a system, we step back and we just watch it start to come into its own. That's what impresses me about the school that we're working with. The principal, the teachers, they know what to do. With the smallest inputs that come up in the gatherings we hold with them, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, and I see now. I know what I need to do. It's so quick. And we're seeing a lot of that beginning to happen with the students themselves. Like they're approaching us, okay, we're really interested in this. So now they're forming some kind of MAPE club. And this MAPE club is going to hold a lot of power on co-designing in representation of the entire student body, designing the permaculture gardens, for example, that will be designed around the classroom, and then how the programs would be held. Right now, we are, as one last point in the schooling project, we are in a discussion between ourselves and with the school. Do we need to take on 800 students? Or do the 800 students need to do everything? Could it be that one grade level goes more into music and a little bit of art, with the filmmaking component, which is a concert between sound, story, writing, the image? Does that happen in 12th grade, 11th grade? So we do need to be super practical right now and look at what is feasible. And the design component needs to happen with a lot of consultation. There has to be so much consultation right now based on the resources are actually quite limited. And we're still waiting for the Belgium response if we're going to get the instrument donation from Japan. And if we don't, then it's actually going to be an opportunity to work on just what is there that's laying around. It's either in nature or even in the waste basket that would create a sound and be part of a song or a movie. So let's keep this conversation going. If you guys are interested in some of the things happening that you maybe came into contact with in this call, and just write to the project, see how you can get interested, see how you can mirror that in your own community. And it's just this thing that's already spreading around the world already. So I hope you're as inspired as it feels like many have spoken or find super inspiring. Wow. WOW. So if you can help me to close from all the continents that are here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good luck for tomorrow in South Africa.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Let us know.
Right.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.